When the United States of America sought independence, it was virtual suicide. We were going up against the most powerful Army and Navy in the world. With what? A group of ragtag farmers and merchants. But the cause was viewed as a righteous one, and it was not a cause entered into lightly. George Washington proved indispensable as the military leader who, with God's help, made independence become a reality.
George Washington became involved in the Virginia political scene as a member of the House of Burgesses. This was Virginia's legislature that had begun back in 1619 in Jamestown, meeting in the Jamestown Church, the first parliament or Congress to meet on American soil. During the founding era, many prominent Virginians were members of the House of Burgesses, such as Washington, Jefferson, and Patrick Henry.
In the 1770s, tensions were brewing between Britain and America.
England wanted American help to pay for the enormous bill left by the French and Indian War. American colonists, seeing themselves as loyal Englishmen, wanted a say in these taxes.
Problem was they didn't give the Americans, who saw themselves as loyal Britishmen, any say in these taxes. So they chafed at taxation without representation.
After the Boston Tea Party in December 1773, Britain decided to impose the Port Act on June 1, 1774. They intended to divide and conquer the colonies and punish Boston in particular.
Britain decided to close the port of Boston as a punishment, expecting that Boston alone would receive punishment and not expecting the other colonies to come to Boston's aid, which they did. In fact, June 1st, 1774, going down to Virginia. That very day, Thomas Jefferson had written up a proclamation of a fasting and day of prayer for Boston.
Up and down the Atlantic seacoast, there was solidarity against the Port Act.
At Philadelphia, the bells of the churches were muffled and tolled. The ships in port hoisted their colors at half-mast. In Virginia, the population thronged the churches. Washington attended the service and strictly kept the fast. George Bancroft.
And in fact, George Washington wrote down in his diary, went to church and fasted all day. So the people from other parts of the colonies were showing their solidarity for Boston.
George Washington attended the First Continental Congress in September of 1774 and participated with the whole Congress in prayer for the colonies. He also attended the Second Continental Congress in the summer of 1775. This was a few months after the shot heard round the world in the battles of Concord and Lexington, April 19th of that year, and Massachusetts delegate John Adams nominated Washington to serve as the commander-in-chief of the Army. This was a momentous task, to lead a ragtag army of farmers and merchants armed with liberty in their hearts and a love for God and country, which faced the most formidable army and navy in the world at that time. George Washington humbly told Congress that he did not feel equal to the command, but with God's help he would do the best he could. He confided his feelings in a letter to his wife.
I hope my undertaking this service is designed to answer some good purpose. I rely confidently on that Providence which has heretofore preserved and been bountiful to me, George Washington.
This appointment will have a great effect in cementing the union of these colonies. The general is one of the most important characters of the world. Upon him depend the liberties of America. John Adams.
All hearts turned with affection toward Washington. This is he who was raised up to be not the head of a party, but the father of his country. George Bancroft.
Washington declined to be paid for his services. However, he did agree to be reimbursed for expenses incurred. He rode away at once to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and in July 1775 took command of the Continental Army. Washington felt that the odds were so overwhelming that only God could help them win this contest. Therefore, he did not want himself or the troops to provoke God through profane behavior. Speaking of himself in the third person, he delivered this order on July 4th, 1775, a year before independence, to his troops.
The general most earnestly requires and expects a due observance of those articles of war established for the government of the army, which forbid profane cursing, swearing, and drunkenness, and in like manner he requires and expects of all officers and soldiers not engaged in actual duty a punctual attendance on divine service to implore the blessing of heaven upon the means used for our safety and defense. General George Washington.
There is a myth today of George Washington essentially as a non-believer, but that's not accurate. Washington was a regular reader of the Bible and of the 1662 Book of Common Prayer. By all outward signs, Washington was a devout 18th century Anglican. Above all, he trusted in God for his help to fight for American independence. And when we won, Washington said at his first inaugural address that no people should be more grateful to God for their liberty than we, the people of the United States. For Providence Forum, I'm Jerry Newcomb.